Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon, it's the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the M.O.A. Broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, just like that, we are back on the airwaves, and we've got a fantastic show lined out for you today. All kinds of good information as usual. Let's go to our show highlight. This is season 2, episode 10 of the MOA, the Make It Out Alive broadcast. And we have some great highlights and a great show. This show's going to be slightly different today. We've got a couple of stories, but I'm going to move through those. Some information I want to share, but we're going to move through that. And then we're going to get into a topic about the high intensity training again, because I continually get emails and messages and stuff about that particular topic, and by some sincere people, not just haters and naysayers. So we're going to get into a little bit more in-depth discussion of the high-intensity training. And so if you're looking to get in shape for the summertime, you got a little bit of time left, but this is one of the absolute best ways as far as building strength and muscle, especially if you don't want to spend a lot of time in the gym. If you're not a gym rat and you don't have to spend your, every waking moment thinking about the gym, talking about the gym, and then spend hours a week hanging out there, this is absolutely the best way to train, in my opinion, which in this case makes it fact. So let's get moving to our show. Our show highlights. We have a creepy school board man now looking at jail time. You'll remember that story from a couple of weeks ago. The guy, man, this guy has just cooked his goose. The guy that told the girl, "God, you're hot," talking to an underage student, I believe, on a live stream from the school board. This is like some kind of a TV or a movie character, and how insane this is. I can't believe this dude. Oh my goodness. Anyways, a rampaging grizzly snacks on a hiker, rabid poodle goes buck wild, and a romantic Instagram meetup leads to a felonious beatdown. All today on the MOA Broadcast. Let's get to it. So I got some stuff in from Amazon this week. Definitely, and you can tell you're getting old or I'm getting old, I guess, because I was excited to get a new mulching blade for my lawnmower. So I had just got the mower out and did the first mowing or two last week, I guess 2-3 weeks ago now, whatever the world it was, and my blade was just beat all up. I had got it. It was a used mower I got off of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, one of those kind of things from some guy in town. And the mower itself was almost, it was very new, but the blade was dull, about as sharp as a wet, soggy meatball, and it had a bunch of dings in the blade and so forth. So I went ahead and used it for the last half of last year and just did a horrible job because the blade was shot. I had too many things going on to get around to taking care of it. But this year I finally dug it out and took the blade off, sharpened it up, and man, what a big difference that made. It was absolutely fantastic. Went through the grass like a knife through hot butter, and was great. The problem is though, is we have real intense sun here. And so because we're in the high desert at 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon. And so what happens is whenever you have all those grass clippings, unless you go out there, if you let your lawn get even a little bit too long, you have these big, tall grass clippings that pile up, and then you got to go rake them. Otherwise they'll turn brown very quickly and they kill the grass underneath it because we don't get a lot of moisture here either. So the high desert climate requires regular watering, and you got to keep your lawn pretty clean. And I'm just not in the mood to do that. Sometimes life gets in the way, and I don't have time to keep my lawn manicured. It never gets really out of control except for the first mowing of the year. But anyways, the bottom line is I got a new mulching blade, sharpened that up, and holy smokes, I got it so sharp. I used the belt grinder, the same thing I use for making knives. It does a great job. So if you've got a 2x72 belt grinder, it does a phenomenal job of sharpening lawnmower blades. And man, that mulching blade was so sharp and clean that it was, the grass that it was kicking out was almost like dust. It wasn't even mulch. It was like dust. So very pleased with that. Big fan. Now I'm ready to rock and roll for the rest of the year. I don't have a real big lawn, so I shouldn't have to sharpen it for the rest of the year. There's not really much in the way of rocks And so, anyway, there you go. Now you know what a fuddy-duddy old man I am when it comes to my lawn. It's funny, the things you laugh at, the things you laugh at when you're a teenager and when you're young about other old dudes doing. And if you live long enough, if you're fortunate, you wind up turning into the same machine yourself, the same fuddy-duddy old man. So anyway, there you go. As far as the rabid poodle going buck wild, that actually happened to me and my dog Bacon. We went to a local, place we go hang out and get, burgers and hot dogs and fries and so forth every once in a while. And, this is my beef. I'm a big animal lover. I love animals, period. And especially dogs, cats, whatever. But I am very responsible with my dog. I always keep him on a leash. And number one, he's not aggressive, and he is completely indifferent to other animals. For whatever reason, he doesn't care about meeting and greeting other animals and whatever else. He'll sniff and smell if they come up and do the same thing to him, but he very rarely, if ever, initiates any kind of contact or whatever. He just doesn't care. I don't know if it was something with the way he was raised in a litter or whatever, but he's always been that way. He's not interested in being some other dog or cat's buddy. Him and the black shop cat Cobra here at the Gear Convoy headquarters get along just fine, but he's not interested in going out and making friends. Well, we were at this place getting something to eat. And this lady I saw the dog as soon as I pulled in. There was a poodle, but I could see it had a lot of energy. And he or she was walking around without a leash. And the owner, just some, whatever, I'll be friendly today. Just some lady, completely oblivious, not paying attention, running around yapping with all of her buddies and, basically just being an irresponsible loser. And all of a sudden that dog, the little poodle, saw Bacon and just made a beeline running at top speed and barking and snapping. And he got up there and literally jumped in the air to lunge at my dog to snap and bite at him.
I had to get it on.
I think I've mentioned this. Well, I know I've mentioned this several times in the show in the past several months or year. Bacon and I have been attacked so many times by stray, what they call res dogs there, because we live very close to, or actually we're on land that used to technically be, and in some capacity may still be, an Indian reservation. So they call these loose dogs, they call them res dogs there, and most of them are pit bulls. And so they just roam around. And I almost got attacked again about, 10, 12 nights ago. I was out taking the trash out. It's like 1 or 2 in the morning. And these 2 pit bulls came running up on me and attacked me in the middle of the night in front of my own home. And I escaped serious injury. But it's something you got to be aware of. So we're completely, both of us, he and I are both completely over this whole thing of stray dogs running up. Another incident happened to the park in the next nearest town, about 30 miles away, a couple of months ago. We were walking in a public park, broad daylight, and some lady had 2 of her dogs loose, and they ran us down, and they started attacking Bacon. And I kicked both of them really hard because they wouldn't stop and sent one of them flying, and that lady got so mad.
I had to get it on.
But she realized the idiocy of her situation and basically let it go. Well, this poodle comes running along, and it jumps up and in midair trying to snap at Bacon. I kicked him. And knocked him across the, not real hard. I wasn't trying to hurt him. I knew he was a small dog. I gave him an appropriate level of force, but knocked him away. And the dog didn't even care. He came running back again. And so I kicked him again. And this lady comes running up. What does she do? Does she go running to her dog to correct the situation? No, of course not. Because she's an irresponsible person in the first place. That's why we're having this issue. She comes running, screaming and yelling at me and almost gets into a physical confrontation, which would have been horribly stupid and unfortunate for her, because not only was she extremely slow and fat and stupid, she was also out of shape and in a dress and sandals, and so clearly was not ready for some sort of physical confrontation with a grown man. And so anyway, the whole thing was over pretty quickly because I told her, just get your dog under control. I don't care. Leave me alone and get your dog under control. She did, made a few snide remarks, or I don't even know what she said. I couldn't understand it, but whatever the tone I got was, she wasn't real pleased with me. But this is the problem that we're facing. And I'm sure it happens all over the world, but I see this a lot in America now, the culture. There is no acceptance of responsibility anymore. Everybody wants all of the freedoms and none of the responsibilities. Part of the responsibility of owning a dog, as I'm sure most of you with brains out there know, is you need to keep it under control, not let it attack other people, and so on and so forth. And, one time, I take my dog with me when I go shopping. And one time in a store that has explicitly told us and clearly told us we can have the dog in there with us, for whatever reason, Bacon, he went number one, a small little puddle on the floor. So I immediately went and got the customer service people. I let them know what happened. I apologized, and I took the mop bucket and went over there and cleaned it up myself because that was my problem. It's my dog. He made the mess. He obviously doesn't know he did anything wrong and doesn't know how to mop. At least last time I checked, they haven't trained dogs to use mops and mop ringers yet and mop buckets. So I took it upon me and cleaned it up. And it was no big deal. They were very friendly about it. It happens. That's what animals do, just like kids. But that's the problem we have here in America. The level of entitlement is off the charts. Everybody wants all of the freedoms and none of the responsibility. And it just gets old. And, these dog attacks, I've talked a number of times how I've had to pepper spray, and take other defensive tactics and employ those to defend myself and my dog from just these random stray dogs or people's dogs that are unleashed in public. And man, it gets really old. If they were leashed and sometimes dogs kind of tie up with each other, that happens. That's the nature of animals. It's not that big of a deal in most cases. But if you don't have your dog on a leash and you're not taking care of and controlling him or her, then they're really, that safety net is gone. You don't have that as an excuse anymore because you're not doing your job. So anyway, there you go. That was the headline for the buck wild rabid poodle gone crazy. I have gone through, and I do not like to do this. I've gone through probably a can and a half of pepper spray in the last 1.5 to 2 years. And if I really enjoy doing it, if I wanted to, I could have gone through 2 to 3 times that much. But I look at it as a last resort because I don't want to do that to dogs. Even if they're being, savage and mean to me and my dog, I don't really like to do that to them. But sometimes you're left with no choice. And pepper spray is very, very effective against dogs and most other animals that I've tried, including humans. And, pardon me, speaking of pepper spray, we've talked about these so-called alleged First Amendment auditors here in the past, and in the last several episodes we talked about it quite a bit. And there were a couple that I don't like to use their names on the show because I don't want to give these guys any publicity. Not that my show is small. I get that. I don't care. It's my show. I do what I want with it. But I don't like to sit there and shout them out and give them any more free publicity. If you're ever interested in looking up and finding these guys, there's dozens, if not hundreds of them online, YouTube, TikTok, and so forth. You can find them. But one of the ones I've been following loosely, I don't really, follow or subscribe to their channels, but I check up every once in a while on their videos. There's been a couple out in California that have been going on a pepper spray rampage for the last couple of months. I mean, pepper spray, we're easily in the double digits. And they're basically, in my opinion, what's going on is we're firmly in the abuse of rights territory in some cases. At least some of these guys are, because they're being extremely provocative, and they're basically almost picking fights with people to get them to react, so they get viral videos for these reaction videos when they turn around and pepper spray them. So anyway, that's a whole other thing. There's several of them that do it, but now 2 of them have received felony charges. One of them spirited back out of the country to whatever country he was from, I think Canada. And the other one was actually arrested for several days. And both of them now have lawsuits and charges brought up against them. I don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to work through the legal system or not. It's going to be interesting to see how this all goes down. But I mean, I think what's happening is people are getting tired of this because people are abusing it for, the money, the clicks and so forth, for the views on YouTube and social media and so forth. So it'll be interesting to see. I talked about that I think last year. Not that you need to be some great prognosticator. I'm not the only one that saw this coming. But as these guys continue to escalate, because at first they were going to like government buildings where they have a right to be in public and to videotape in public and so forth. And once they would go to frequently like post offices and courthouses. Once that kind of got played out, they started going to more and more private places where they had a bit of a fringe right in some cases to be there on public property. And some of them, they were even kind of, in my opinion, kind of manipulating certain laws that allowed them to be on private property. And that's a whole other subject to go into. But they were just having to push the envelope further and further as they ran out of, this exciting content to get clicks and views on. So it was pretty easy to see the escalation coming. Now we'll see how it works its way through the legal system, because some of these guys have multiple charges laid on them, and it may or may not hold up as self-defense. If you instigate the situation, or you are clearly going around and just popping off to people nonstop, sooner or later, right or wrong, the legal system just decides to take you down. And in that case, even if you wind up getting off in the very end, the way the legal system in America works out is frequently the process is the punishment. So even if they wind up getting off, they'll drag them through the legal system if they get to that point where, the system has just had enough of it. They know, okay, if these guys appeal this far enough, whatever, they'll wind up getting off, but we're going to make it painful. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be a long, slow process, and we're going to drain them by keep slapping charges and blah, blah, blah. So there you go. I will keep you updated on that. Okay. We go to Glacier National Park. I was going to put this story in last episode, but didn't have time. We got to keep moving, though. Where are we at on time? Okay, we got to keep it zipping here. What happened? A hiker killed in apparent bear attack in Glacier Park. This article comes to us via the Montana Free Press. If confirmed, it was confirmed. The death, from what I read, the death of the Florida man will be the first fatal bear attack in Glacier National Park since 1998. A missing hiker in Glacier National Park, for you Americans, appears to have been killed by a bear in what could be the first fatal bear encounter in the park in nearly 30 years. Anthony Polio, 33, of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Poor guy goes all the way from Florida to get away from Florida, man, and he runs into a grizzly bear. It's not even funny. I mean, the luck of some people. Was reported missing Monday after he didn't return home from a hike on the west side of Glacier Park the previous day, according to officials. The last known contact had been Sunday at about 8:20 p.m. when he messaged someone, and I believe it was his dad. Some of these, I'm telling you, man, I've talked about this a number of times, but the level of journalistic quality in reporting is just through the basement. It's horrible. I have to read 3 to 4 different versions of most of these stories to piece together all the pertinent details. It is absolutely unbelievable. Anyway, the other article I read said that he had been in contact with his father and sent him a message saying he was, whatever it was a positive message, something to the effect of he was doing good, having a great time. He's going to go do this hike or whatever it is towards the Mount Brown fire lookout the next day or something like that. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. His car was later found near the Lake McDonald Lodge, and his remains were found Wednesday, this is about 2 weeks ago, at noon, about 50 feet off the Mount Brown Trail in a heavily wooded area. They said the injuries, according to park officials, were consistent with those sustained by a bear encounter. It goes on to talk about park closure. It doesn't really matter for the moment. This is a week and a half, 2-week-old news. The thing that when I read through various versions of this story, this guy looks like he did everything right. From what I saw, he had prepared properly. He had all the equipment. He wasn't like in trouble with exposure or hunger or, the elements, whatever else. He was prepared properly. He was in contact with people on the outside who knew where he was. They knew when to expect him back. And again, this is the breakdown report, the AAR, after action report that we kind of conduct here on the MOA broadcast, because frequently we see these people, they just go to REI or Walmart, they buy a couple $100 or a couple of $1,000 worth of gear, throw it all in a backpack and jump on the trail and have no idea what they're doing. And then I wouldn't say they get there just dessert. That's a little harsh, but what do you expect if you don't take the proper precautions? There's an old saying, if you're going to get frisky with Mother Nature, you better bring protection. And a lot of the people that wind up on this show, the headlines and the stories we go through, they fail to do that. They don't prepare properly. They run out there. They have no idea how much food and water, so they usually bring way too much or way too little. No one knows where to look for them, so they've got automatically 2 to 3 days to burn through where no one's looking for them, where they're dying of starvation or the elements, exposure, or wild animals, or they're stuck on the edge of a cliff or whatever before anyone even starts to look for them. This guy didn't do that. From everything that I read, was his name Anthony, I think? Anthony Polio, 33. He did a good job. I feel really bad for this dude because he did everything right that I could find. And then probably the biggest thing you can do, honestly, the way I look at this, what usually winds up saving people, cell phones frequently either don't get reception or they crap out or whatever else. One of the biggest and best things you can do is tell somebody where you're going and where you're gonna be and when to expect. Here's how I do it. When I go out on a backpacking trip or whatever trip where I'm going to be gone at least overnight or even a couple of hours, honestly, if there's even the potential for it to get serious, I will typically contact 2 different people and say, if you do not get a text message or a phone call from me by this time, something is seriously wrong, and send in the cavalry. because that means I have not made it back and I'm in trouble. And what I'll then will do is when I arrive at the trailhead, I will usually drop a pin and send that to the two different people, via cell phone, which is very easy to do, so that they at least have a starting point and know where my vehicle is at. And that dramatically narrows down the search and at least give people a place to start. Because I've gone out a number of times and gone to one trail and decided to change my mind and went to another one because there were too many people or because, the elements, the snow was too much or whatever else, especially here at, the minor elevation we have here in Oregon. And so instead of sending them a whole new trip, itinerary and agenda, I would just drop a pin where I'm actually going to be at. And this guy did all that. He was in contact with his dad. He must have had reception, either that or he had a satellite phone, and he was in contact with his dad and I think someone else, and according to one article, he was doing it right. And he just had the horrible misfortune to encounter a grizzly bear who was on the prowl. And there's not a whole lot you can do. It does not mention if he was armed or not. Given his age and being from Florida, I think there was at least a good possibility that he was armed. However, with interstate travel, sometimes people are sometimes hesitant to bring firearms and so forth. So I don't know. I don't know whether he was armed or not. Either way, he didn't make it. The bear got him. No word yet. I haven't found a follow-up on whether or not they went and tracked the bear down and did what they had to do. So, we all know how that works. If a bear or any animal pretty much, kills a human, they put it down. No word on whether or not they found the bear and took care of that business or not. So anyway, my condolences, man. I hate it when somebody does the right thing all the way from top to bottom, as far as I can tell, and they wind up paying the price anyway. That's just the inherent risk and danger of going out into the wilderness, despite how much and how far technology has come. For those outside the U.S., you may or may not realize how massive the United States is. It is very, very easy to, with a short drive from a highway, to get into some very, very remote and rough terrain very quickly. And, that's the way it goes. That's the risk we all take. So best of luck to his family. I hope things go well for him. I really do. That kind of stinks. Okay, now where are we at on time? Perfect. We're at a great spot. We're going to go ahead and get into the HIT, high intensity training. We've talked about this 2 or 3 episodes in a row now, but I always get emails and messages and so forth, questions and comments about this. I'm not going to focus on the haters. For those of you that don't know, if this is your first time listening to the show or you've never heard of high intensity training, the basic principle, this is going to be your HIT primer for today. The basic principles of high intensity training are this. You go in, it's brief, infrequent exercise. You do 1 set to failure for most of your or all of your muscle groups, depending on whether you're doing a full body workout or not. And then you stop. You get out of the gym and you go back to your life and you leave it alone. So this training style, it is effective. For those of you that don't think it works, be quiet. You're wrong. I can prove it. I don't want to have that discussion with you 99.999%. That basically means 100% of the time, unless someone is just severely genetically shortchanged and doesn't have the genetic ability to grow and get bigger and stronger and the recovery ability to facilitate that growth. The problem, the reason why they fail the high intensity training is they just can't put in the work, because if you do it right, it is very, very, it's painful. There's a great deal of discomfort whenever you push your body to absolute failure. You're forcing your body to do something it doesn't want to do. Let's use the example of barbell curls. Okay, so we have a visual here because this is a radio, show podcast. It's audio only right now. I don't have a video backup yet. I just don't have time right now to do all of that. Let's take barbell curls. Use a straight bar. The easy curl bar, I won't call it trash, but you're missing out. Without going into the physiology of it all, the primary function of the biceps as far as pronation and supination and blah, blah, blah. Use a straight bar curl like you would for bench press or for squat. And you're going to use a straight bar. First off, litigiously here in America, consult your doctor before any workout routine and program. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about what I do. You can kind of do with that information what you want. And what I'll probably try and do at some point is to put this into some type of a format where it's a little bit more linear and just gives you the pertinent, salient information so you can, for those that are interested, extract that information and go with it. But back to barbell curls. Let's say you use 100 pounds. Let's use the old 100-pound, weight, and you're going to do 10 repetitions. When you hit failure, what that means is around repetition 6 or 7, you're going to notice it starts getting difficult. At reps 1 through 6, you're cruising right through. You want to use nice controlled speed, good clean cadence. And what that stands for, what that means is approximately 2 seconds on the positive or the lifting phase. So 2 seconds to raise that bar from your waist up to your chest. You want to get a full range of motion. And then about 4 seconds to lower it. The negative is far more important for the muscle building portion of this than the positive. Lifting it is good for the aerobic part and some of the muscle building, but the negative is where you really get down to being productive. So you want to accentuate the negative, okay? So you would lift that weight in about 2 seconds, lower it in about 4 seconds, give or take. I like to go a little slower once I get into a good groove, but you do you. So you're going to do 10 repetition with that. Around rep 6, you're going to notice it starts to get a little bit more difficult. Your body's starting, the lactic acid is building up, the burn is starting to get there, and it's starting to get a little harder, a little more difficult to raise that weight. Reps 7 and 8, you're having to concentrate, and you're not swinging. You're keeping good, clean form. Because really, the point is not to go up in weight. That will happen. That's the inevitability part of it. That will happen inexorably if you do it properly. But the goal is to do good, clean repetitions, and the strength and size will follow. So you don't want to do 10 reps at all costs, meaning you're flinging the weight around, because when you start having the momentum and impact forces, that is when injuries happen. Okay? So you got to go nice and clean, smooth, safe repetitions, full range of motion. Around 8 or 9, it's going to get very, very difficult. And 9 and 10, the last 2 repetitions, if you're able to do 10, 9 and 10, you should be, you're really focusing, you're sweating, you're feeling the pain. Believe it or not, good, clean, straight bar biceps curls are one of the absolute most difficult exercises to do cleanly and productively and consistently to failure. I have had more people, the 2 exercises that get people the most in the people that I have trained over the years is squats and straight bar barbell curls. I have had people, and this is not the goal, but I have had people literally vomit, and I've had 1 or 2 people almost go into shock while doing straight barbell curls to failure. And you can think I'm exaggerating. You can think I don't care. I saw it. I was there. I took notes. I don't care. That is how it works. And so if you don't like it, you don't hear, you disagree, whatever, then change your station, man. Do whatever you want to do. And I mean that respectfully. But I'm telling you, it is very, very intense. One guy, actually 2 guys, I had to drag into a shower stall and turn cold water on them to revive them because I was probably pushing them a little too hard. But anyway, that's another story. That just goes to show both of those guys, though, were straight bar barbell curls. It is a very intense exercise done properly. Okay. So, but when you, even on your 10th rep, you can use a little what they used to call body English to kind of get it the repetition up. But if you're doing crappy, dirty reps, it doesn't really count, doesn't really matter. And that's really when injury starts to creep in. So that what makes the high intensity training so special, the reason it works is whether it's 90, 95, 98, 99.774682% or 100%, when you get to that certain percentage of intensity, it tells the body, you need to be stronger. You need to grow. And if you give your body the appropriate amount of rest time, it absolutely will. So for people that if you're not a gym rat, if you don't like to spend a lot of time in the gym and you just want to get the job done and get in and out of there, I recommend a 2-day-a-week split. And already I know some of the gym rats are like, what? You got to work out at least 3, blah, blah, blah. It does not have to be that way. Next week, I'll probably dig out my old notebooks because I recorded almost every workout I ever did, along with dozens upon dozens of, probably hundreds of different workouts from trainees. I gave a lot of them their notebooks when we were done, but I still have, I think, a couple of them somewhere. And we'll go through some different exercise routines and so forth. But you can do this program if you just want to get yourself in good, clean shape. Now, this is not going to be the greatest weight loss program because there's not a ton of calories burned. There's not a great deal of cardio involved. Not that those are necessarily the same when it comes to weight loss, but that's another topic. The bottom line, though, is you can get yourself in as good a shape as your genetics will allow, you doing 2 workouts twice a week. Workout A and workout B, or you can do the same workout twice a week. It doesn't matter. That take about 15 to 20 minutes each. That's it. In 35 to 45 minutes a week, total workout time. You could even do it less, but you get much less than that. You're not going to have, all the benefits you could possibly extract. That's all it takes. The bottom line is what I recommend and what I've had the best, at least for me, myself anyway, what I've had the best, what I recommend for me, I know my body. I know the rep ranges and so forth. I've had the best success with me and the people I've trained when doing an A and a B workout. Both of these will include some type of leg, hip, or buttocks exercise for the thighs, something like that, meaning either A, squats, or B, deadlift. And then I will do workout A will usually be like squats, and then dips, chins, and like overhead press. That's the toughest workout. It's all the big bad stuff in one. That covers all of your big muscle groups. You don't want to sit here and worry about all the tiny little bodybuilding exercises, the single joint movements. You want to focus on the compound movements, the multiple joint movements like squat, like overhead press, dip, chin. And I prefer dips and chins to bench press and pull downs. I just think they're better. They really force you to activate a lot more muscle mass. And if you can't dip and chin yourself when you're a 200 to 225 pound man, that's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I've seen guys that can sit there and bench press, 250, 350, 375, and they can barely chin themselves. And, we'll get into that's another story. I don't want to get sidetracked. Where are we at on time here? So I keep this. Okay, we're doing good. Focus on those when you get to where you can do 10 to 12 repetitions on the dip and or chin, depending on what's best for you. I'll give you an example myself. When I'm doing heavy weighted dips, when I used to be in good shape years and years ago, I would do the best rep range for me. When I hit 6 repetitions on the weighted dips, I would go up and add more weight. And if I did that, I would add weight almost every single time, weight or repetitions almost every single time from workout to workout. So on Monday, I would do squats followed by weighted dips, weighted chins, and then overhead press, which I would do either seated or standing against a wall or something like that, against a back brace, so that I kept my back nice and straight. Then my second workout would be deadlifts, followed by like my triceps movement of choice, whichever that would be, followed by straight bar barbell curls, and then a calf raise of some sort. Now that covered all the big basic muscle groups of the body. Once you get to where you're basically developed to where you want to be, then you can start working on things like your brachialis, your rear deltoids, your front deltoids, and so on and so forth. But work the big muscle groups first. And so I would go in there, I would do my squats to failure, and I would typically do what's called a breathing squat. 15 to 20 reps of whatever weight would cause me to fail, between 15 and 20. And I kept it around 225. Once I got to a certain age, it wasn't that I was old, but I'm like, you know what? In the interest of keeping my back and everything else, discs and everything else nice and safe, not having so much weight on my back, I would stop at 225. And I would crank out 20 to 22 repetitions of 225 full squat, what they used to call ass on heels, butt on heels, whatever you want to call it. All the way down to the ground. And then I would give myself usually about a 2.5 minute rest after that, because it's what's called a breathing squat. Once you get to around repetition 12 or 14, I would have to take 3, 4, 5 breaths in between before I'll go to the next rep. Some people are going to say it's not a true squat. I don't care. It was good for me. That gives you a tremendous amount of cardio, both aerobic and anaerobic endurance and strength, when you can sit there and do a full squat with 225 pounds for 20 reps. Okay, that is a heck of a full body exercise all on its own. Then I would recover. After that, I would give myself little to no rest in between the rest of the exercises, and that developed what's called metabolic fitness and ability, because your body is having to not only process and deal with all the oxygen, but also the demands placed on it by the anaerobic activity of lifting the weights. So we would do squats to failure, go ahead and clean the rack, get a breath, get a drink of water. Then it was on to dips. I would add the dips, 25, 50, 75, 100 pounds, whatever, and do the dips. When I would do them between the 4 and 6 rep range. When I hit 6 reps, it was time to go up and wait the next workout. So if I got to 7 reps, whatever, it didn't mean you stop at 6. You stop when it's clean, safe failure. And then so if I even got 8, I would keep going until I got 8, until I couldn't get any more. And then I would know to add, 5, 10, 15 pounds, whatever, to the next workout. Same thing with chin-ups. I preferred chins. So chin-ups are better than pull-up. People will say, oh, chin-ups are easier, because a chin-up is whenever your palms are facing you. A pull-up is when your palms are facing away from you. And people will say, well, chin-ups are cheating because you're using your biceps. Guys, that's the whole point. If you do pull-ups, and if you need to do pull-ups for some type of sport or military training or whatever else, then do what you got to do. But if you want to develop your back and your biceps, chin-ups are a great biceps exercise. You want your palms facing you because your arms, no matter which way you have your palms facing, your arms are going to give out long before your back is fully fatigued. Okay, so why would you weaken yourself further by having your palms facing away and limiting the involvement of your biceps? Okay, now again, do whatever you want, but that's what I would do. I did the palms facing, and I would do that weighted, my body weight plus, 15, 20, 25, 50 pounds, whatever, while I did chins for repetitions. Then onto that, it was immediately on to overhead press, using again a straight bar and whatever weight that wound up being. For that, I would do my triceps and shoulders both did really well in the 8 to 10 rep range. So when I hit 10 reps, I would add weight. Now, you may ask yourself, how do you know what your rep range is? In the beginning of your quest here, you're going to have to take notes. This is important. You always want to record the exercises and then the amount of weight followed by repetitions. I would actually include the time too that I did it, so I could always kind of try to beat that time a little bit and shave time off. That would improve my cardiovascular ability as well. But you want to take notes because in the beginning, for the first 5, 6, 8, 10 workouts, whatever it is, you have to find that rep range because most people's muscles are going to have different rep ranges. My biceps, I do 4 to 6 repetitions. If I let's say I get to 135 pounds on straight bar curl, okay, whenever I hit 6 repetitions, it will almost be impossible for me to get 7 or 8. I could go up to 140 or 145 and still get 6 and not be able to do 8 or 10 with 135 because I don't have a tremendous amount of endurance in my biceps for straight bar curls. That's what happens. My triceps are almost the opposite. I thrive in the 10 to 12 rep range and sometimes beyond. I have a great deal of endurance in my triceps muscles. Okay. So you have to find that out. And the way you find that out is I would start off in the standard, 10 repetition range and then see. If you're not making progress, then go ahead and go up to 12 repetitions and see if you get stronger. And if you don't, then start dropping it down. 8 repetitions, 6 repetitions. In general, you're not going to want to go below 6 if you're going to failure because that's not enough to sufficiently tax the anaerobic muscular system when you're doing that. So, and that's why keeping notes is so important because while it may seem frustrating at the time, going there and doing these workouts and not getting the maximum progress, once you figure that range out, you'll know it for the rest of your life and it's valid for the rest of your life. I know exactly what rep range to tailor every single exercise to the body part and the group of muscles and to get the maximum amount of growth. Then, this is the important thing. When you finish your workout, that's it. You don't got to sit there and think about the gym. You don't got to breathe the gym. You don't got to fantasize about the gym. You go do whatever in the world it is you want to do. And give yourself, by having those 2 weekly workouts, I would usually do mine on Mondays and Fridays. That way I would do my really heavy workout, the one that did the squats, the full squats to failure. And failure on squats, real briefly, failure on squats you got to be careful because when you start getting to the failure point in squats, again, this is for me, you have to make your own decision on what you're going to do here. Everything starts coming apart. Your back's getting tired, your lower back's getting tired, your legs are tired, your lungs are shot, you're toast. Okay, so squat to me, whenever I was no longer able to safely keep my back nice and straight and keep my body somewhat upright and let my legs do the work, that's when I would stop. Whenever I didn't feel safe doing another rep, that's when I stopped on squat. You got to push yourself, but you have to be safe as well. On most other exercises, it's pretty, it's not as complicated. Whenever you're squatting to failure, there's a lot going on. It's like all these red lights and whistles and everything are going off inside because your body is in all kinds of pain, pumping out all this strength and moving this weight around and everything else over a distance of, 2.5 feet, depending how tall you are. So make sure you're very, very safe on that. But it doesn't mean whenever you're no longer able to, I would always fail on squats in the upright position. I wouldn't lower it down one last time. To me, it wasn't worth the danger. So I would, whenever I couldn't get another clean rep, I would go ahead and rack it, and that was it. But I definitely pushed myself very hard on those. So, but keep track of that on paper, and then you can really dial in your rep ranges and so forth. After 4 or 5 workouts, it usually starts to come together pretty well, and you know exactly what you need to do to make progress. And then you stick with it. Once you know, like I said, for my biceps, when I hit 6 repetitions, I go up in weight. It just doesn't do me any benefit to go beyond that. For my triceps, it's the opposite. Compound exercises are a little bit more complicated because you're involving multiple muscle groups, But in general, you'll start to figure it out again. That's why it's so important to take notes and then refer to those. So, okay, hopefully that's been helpful. We'll do another series on this. In fact, I may do a whole episode outside of the MOA broadcast where I kind of lay this out in a very clear, linear, logical order. But then the second workout would be on Friday. It would be deadlift and then followed by just the limbs, biceps, triceps, calves, and so forth. And that way I wasn't taking so much of a chunk out of my body's recovery ability. And where the magic really happens is not during the workout. That stimulates the growth. But the important thing here, what really makes the high intensity training work, is the recovery time. So by having a 3 and 4 days respectively between workouts for your body to recover, if you do it right, once you understand what you're doing and get your rep ranges dialed in, you will be stronger every single workout. I can go back and look at my notebooks for myself and others, and they were stronger. Even if it was only by 3, 4 repetitions or 5, 10, 15 pounds, they were stronger every workout because they stimulated growth and then they stopped. Let your body recover. That is extremely critical. So if you don't do that, then it doesn't really matter. That's why working out every day is almost always a bad decision, unless you have some specialized situation going on. So there you go. That's how that works. Okay, let's go. We're running the gamut here. We go, let me get a quick sip before. It's time for the MOA Chaos Report, where somebody's bad decisions give you a good laugh. Real news, real hard, real funny. Some elements modified for extra laughs. All right, we go to the great state of Florida, of course. Miami woman accused of robbing man she met on Instagram at her luxury apartment, cops say. This story comes to us via NBC Miami. A Miami woman is facing charges after she was accused of working with 2 other women to rob a man whom she met on Instagram at her luxury apartment, police said. Nicole Cano, 30, was arrested Monday on charges of false imprisonment and strong-arm robbery. Miami-Dade jail records showed the alleged incident happened back on April 11, when the victim said he was contacted by Cano, who he had previously met on Instagram. An arrest report said, "I'll buy that for $1." According to the report, they agreed to meet that afternoon for drinks at her apartment at Paraíso Bayviews, a luxury high-rise condo building on Northeast 31st Street. The man said Cano escorted him to her apartment, and while he was admiring the view from the balcony, 2 unknown females came out of a bedroom. The report said, "Put your hands up. Give me all you got. I said do it now." Cano and the 2 other women began demanding money from him, and he shouted that he didn't have any money, but they prevented him from leaving the apartment. The report said, "Where do you think you're going?" "I said, give me a..." A brief struggle ensued, and the man said his chain was forcibly pulled from his neck. He said he maintained possession of the chain, but a $300 gold cross pendant was taken, the report said. The man said he was able to get out of the apartment while screaming for help. "Anybody see Richie?" Cano was later interviewed by Miami police and admitted to initiating the meeting with the victim, but denied any involvement in the robbery or false imprisonment, the report said. She was arrested and booked into jail before she appeared before a judge on Tuesday, who set her bond at $7,500. "I'll buy that for $1." We ask that anybody that has information or that is also a victim of this female or any other, please contact the City of Miami Police Department and give us that information, Miami Police spokesman Michael Vega said. All right, folks, remember, don't wait until you have an emergency to prepare. If you wait, it may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.